Hello, welcome to week 4. If you're viewing this video, it's because you either missed both or just one of our synchronous days. So I will be going over our Google Slides and all of the prompts that you will need to complete within them. So this is week 4, like I said. Our schedule for this week, we have the slides, we have a graphic organizer for check-in. I have completed a second video that should already be up and loaded on YouTube with a link in the slides and in the directions for, I'm going over the graphic organizers and the project instructions and rubric for your final project, so you can watch that video to learn about that. And if you are interested in honors, I did not create a video going over this, but just email me and I will gladly go over it with you. So again, if you click on this link, it'll bring you to the actual instructions and rubric, and within that you will find a link of myself going over those instructions in a different video. But for this video, we will be going over what we actually did in our Zoom call. And that's also in the other video. So some review. We learned last week about 3 categories of persuasion via Aristotle. Logos, pathos, and ethos focuses on logic and reason, empathy and emotions, and ethics, the credibility of the expert. And I want you to think about these 3 categories from the metaphor of a toolbox and the tools that are in that toolbox. So if you are building a bookshelf, or maybe you're trying to mount something on the wall of your living room, you will use specific tools to complete that task. That is the same thing that you would do in writing, in persuasive writing. If you're trying to, metaphorically, hammer a nail into a wall and you're using a saw to do it, it's not going to get the job done. It might even be impossible. So that would be the same thing for writing. If you're trying to persuade your audience and you want them to feel excited and full of hope and to be kind of really jazzed up about a certain idea, if you're using logos to do it, it might work, but you really want pathos because that's evoking emotion and empathy in people. So think about it in that terms of that metaphor. In the slides, I've included this graphic and this graphic. It's based off of Miss Hunt's idea of head and heart, that just another way to think about the definitions of these terms and kind of remember which ones are which, because I know we can get confused. I do all the time. After it's been some time away from it, I kind of need a refresher. So that's available if you need it or want it. We also talked last week about the idea of knowing your audience, and we talked through several different hypothetical situations of describing how you would try to convince your audience of becoming a vegetarian or convincing your grandma to get a smartphone and what you would need to do that. And it's all about knowing your audience. I will say as a note that for our purposes, because it's an academic one, you need to assume that your audience is diverse, that they have a variety of ways that they would prefer to see an argument. They have a variety of interests and passions and beliefs. And so knowing that, you have to use a variety of tools. If you're talking to just your mom and you know that your mom really thinks about facts and figures, you would use logos, and that is a very specific audience. But you need to think about maybe a crowd of people or an infinite number of people that you would try to convince of your argument. So you're going to use a variety. Now, let's look at these specific writing techniques and tools. How do we actually make an argument persuasive? What do we do? So the first category is fear. This is when you present a very scary situation. It could be on the spectrum of something that is absolutely tragic and horrible, like your car not working correctly and it causing your family to get into an accident and they all die. That is kind of the extreme version. Or maybe fear in terms of like a moment of embarrassment and panic. You're sitting next to a really cute girl on the subway. I don't know, we don't take the subway here, but on the subway, and you realize that you have bad breath. That is a moment of embarrassment, potential embarrassment. So you could, if you were talking about an ad for extra gum or something, mint, that would be a way that you could use this. So what I want you to do is watch this commercial and think and add, do we have anything else? Any other topics, products that we could think of that use this type of persuasive technique? So go ahead and do that. All right, so the next is bandwagoning. This is the idea that everyone is doing it. Everyone has this. Everyone that is cool knows about this, believes in this, purchases this. And if you're not a part of that crowd, then you are just out of it and you're not cool. You're not in with it. You can think about FOMO, the fear of missing out, which is a very real thing, by the way. It's not just a joke. So I want you to watch these commercials, particularly the iPhone commercial, and think about what are other types of products that would cause people to think, oh my gosh, I am not with everyone else. I need to be a part of this. That's bandwagoning. Go ahead and do that. Okay, so if you noticed with this iPhone commercial, this is the iPhone X. This came out in 2017. And this was the first iPhone to not have a home button. There were so many changes technology-wise that caused the bandwagon fever, I guess you could call it, to just really spike. Everyone decided, I don't want my phone, even though it works perfectly fine. I want the new iPhone X because it is brand new. There are so many features that I don't have. And it caused a giant bandwagon. We could also think about things like TV shows. Have you ever had somebody say, oh my gosh, have you seen Stranger Things? Have you seen it yet? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's so good. Somebody hypes something up and you have no idea what they're talking about. It immediately makes you want to go watch it or buy it or whatever. And you can think about fashion. How is there certain fashion trends that lead us to go, okay, that is something that my mom would wear when she was a kid. Times are different now. I need to dress like this, right? So that was day one. It took a long time for me to describe the instructions for our project. So that was day one. Day two, let's look at testimonial. This is a very, very popular way amongst like specific commercial and advertising to persuade somebody. You are using a famous person. That could be an athlete, a celebrity, a musician, somebody that is famous and really well loved to endorse a product or a person sometimes. So go ahead and watch these examples, the McDonald's and the JP Morgan example, and then come up with a list of other famous people that you've seen in advertisements. What are they sponsoring? All right, so loaded words. This is when you are using very specific connotations that create a very specific and intended effect. So if you're looking at these, illegal immigrant versus undocumented worker, this is the same person, the same thing, but you're using different words with different connotations to describe it, and it really just alters the label of that person entirely. So go ahead and look through this list, and then I want you to describe to me tell me for each one, which do you typically lean toward or find that you would maybe use if you were talking about these things for whatever reason? All right, so repetition. This is the idea that you repeat something over and over again. It's very simple. If you think of the Meow Mix commercials, meow, 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 they're using like a tune with the name of the company, the brand, over and over again. Or break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. That is a jingle. It's a slogan, which we'll talk about in a second, and it's repetitive over and over again in this commercial. Also, Smart Pack, using that Boston accent of these three famous people to repeat over and over again to remind people, Smart Park. This is a new car. It parks itself. Okay?
Oh, look at this guy.
All right. Check-in conferences are next week. You can look at this list to figure out where you're at. Okay, so slogans. These are catchy sayings that you would use to brand a product. This is not always, but oftentimes used in jingles. A jingle is essentially a slogan that you put to music, and this can be it can be very annoying the way they do it, but also a very effective way to automatically connect your brain, your memory to a product when you hear that jingle or a slogan. So go ahead and watch those videos and then tell me what other slogans or jingles can you think of? What else comes to mind?
Every customer has their own.
Okay. Oh, this one's a lot. So plain folk. This just means ordinary people. You're using this idea of trying to help your audience and your potential customer identify with, oh my gosh, they are an ordinary person just like me. You're really playing up that empathy and being able to relate and connect. So go ahead and watch these videos, and then I'll kind of briefly talk through each of them. Okay, so the Nike commercial with LeBron. Obviously, many people love him and say that he's one of the best basketball players that there ever has been. And so this whole video is playing on the idea of beginnings, that we all have to start somewhere, and that kind of hinting at the idea that maybe one day you could be as great as LeBron. You just have to start somewhere. And that's with buying Nike clothes, right? This commercial up top really hits home that I would say a lot of these are pathos, the empathy and emotion of a couple, and obviously the wife is no longer living, but the husband is using Google to remind himself every day of his beloved wife and all the memories that they've shared, which is very relatable. We use Google all the time, right? I'm using it right now. And then this commercial from 1971, this is a very, very famous commercial. If you haven't seen it before, you obviously have now, and you probably will at some point again. This plays on the idea that though people are different, we are all connected because we're all human, and just want to buy the world a Coke, right? Like just want to, I don't know, kind of promote the sense of peace. This was also during the time of like the Vietnam War and lots of things going on in the world. So lots of historic ties here. And then this video is something that I found during the summertime. I've seen this happen with so many different products on TikTok. Somebody gets on and says, let me put you on something. Let me tell you about this. You need to go to Target right now. You need to go to Starbucks and you need to order this drink. And they hype something up so much that people go out and do it. In this video, she's talking about teeth whitening from Arc, this type of new way to whiten your teeth. And she shows you how awesome it works on her. And then if you go and listen to the sound, you can see all these stitches of people who went out to Target and bought Arc and did exactly what she said, because they bought into the idea that they could look that good too, because she's just an average teenager every day, right? So I'm going to jump out like this. It'll be easier for me. Okay, we got 3 more here. So transference, this might be one of the more difficult ones to remember just because the term is kind of so fancy in comparison. But basically this means you are transferring ideas and feelings. You are trying to make specific choices to associate or transfer good feelings from a beloved object to a person, something that you could associate with. It's really all about association. So if you think about literally, this is just one example, but any medication commercial that you've ever seen before, they usually start by showing somebody that's in chronic pain and their life is all gloomy and dark and there's a cloud hanging over their head. And then all of a sudden, once they start taking Skyrizi or whatever medication they're taking, the world opens up and you usually see scenes of people outdoors enjoying their life. It's sunny, it's bright, they're swimming, life is perfect. That would be transference. You are directly associating this drug with this type of experience that you would have. Or you could think about not videos, but pictures. Anytime that you watch something that's in the media, especially something in politics around election time, everything around the politician is there on purpose. You have an American flag in the background, the flag for the state of Illinois, because that's where Obama was before he was president. He's wearing an American flag on his suit. We've got a nice, rich oak podium. Everything in this picture is set up for a reason. They are trying to associate President Obama, former President Obama, with patriotism and class and professionalism, right? So I want you to either write down more thoughts about what I just said or find another medication commercial and tell me, what did you notice? What did you observe about the transference? Okay, beautiful people. This is our last category to look at. So this is kind of the opposite of plain folk, but it has just the same power. So this is persuasion by demonstrating how quote unquote beautiful people use the product or believe in the idea. And somehow if you believe in this idea or use this product, you could become beautiful just like them. So this is where you're going to see supermodels and fancy cars and perfume, things like that. So watch these two commercials, the Rolls Royce and the jewelry commercial from Zales, and then tell me, what other products do you think about when you think of something that's luxurious or rich? Okay, lastly, the thing that is beautiful and also deceiving and tricky about marketing and advertising, anything with persuasion. It is very rare to use a technique in isolation, meaning that technique and that one only. Often, like in the world of advertising and marketing, they will combine different techniques to create a very, very specific effect to persuade you. And this is an example. So I want you to watch this Audi commercial, and then I want you to tell me in this box over here, what are the persuasive techniques that you see being used, and describe how. How are they using it? Okay?